Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Applied Near Life, also called Team Training Tuesday. Today is the 25th of June. It's the last Tuesday of June, and I'm sure for everybody in the family, you're getting excited about the month end. And so I'd like you to get excited about this presentation as well. We have a guest speaker. He is my colleague, one that I really admire and look up to. And I thought it would be a nice way to end June, particularly since we've been talking about members of the family. We started with mom, and then we talked about dad, or men generally. And then we talked about the youth last week. So today we want to round up the family and talk about the health of the family. And the slant will take the question, why supplement? And why it is important to consider prevention versus cure. So what I will do is do a very brief presentation just to introduce the topic, and then we'll break and have a question and answer and comments and testimonies, after which we'll round up at the end. And for the guests, if there are any guests, you are welcome. We want you to know what we do in our family called Neo Life. That is myself. My name is Zanambasi. I am trained as a medical doctor. I love what we do in Neo Life, and the name of my brand is Simply Healthier. And what I like to do is to help people to shift their focus from sickness to wellness and from poverty to prosperity. And that is our guest speaker, Dr. Baker Kabugo. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself. If he wants to introduce himself now, he's welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself now, Doc, or after? Then you're...
Yes, I think it's no problem. Good evening, everyone on call. My name is Baker Kabuga. I'm a doctor, and I'm a consultant in metamedical practice. Metamedicine is the integration of a patient's medical, nutritional, and psychosocial needs when you are managing a condition. So I think I'm a specialist in there, and I am currently retired. I'm retired from clinical practice, and I am doing my work at Kampala Nutrition Center. Actually, I started Kampala Nutrition Center as my retirement plan in order to achieve my dream. I have a very big dream. My dream is to make 366 friends, so that by the time I'm 70 years, I can decide to visit one friend per day. And by the time I finish all my friends, the year is gone, I go back for another year. So that is my very big dream. But that dream also has connotations that whoever is going to become my friend, I should have contributed either on her health or his health, or I should have contributed on the financial status, so that by the time I come to visit you, I am a friend of value or a visitor of value. So that's me. I'm currently in Kampala, but I stay around 35 miles from Kampala. So after this Zoom, I will be heading back home on my lovely bike, and I'll be riding for 2 hours. So nice hearing from you, and thank you, Dr. Eseza, for inviting me to be part of you today.
Awesome. Okay, so as I've already said, it's a session for questions, comments, testimonies, discussions, and some answers. I've invited you to speak to Dr. Kabugo and myself, but before we do, I just want to point out that we have a lot of work ahead of us, because a lot of people love a quick fix after they've lived life, and if they feel a twinge or a pain, then they want it fixed quickly. But I just want to remind you that we have so much work to do, and great things never came from comfort zones. We have to get uncomfortable and work on our health. So let's look at hypertension, and I've chosen this topic very, very specifically because there's nobody better to talk about it. What is hypertension? It is abnormally high blood pressure. And what would cause it? Some people describe hypertension as a state of great psychological stress, which is interesting. But its significance is that it measures the pressure of blood on artery walls throughout the body. And as you might know, arteries carry oxygenated blood from the heart to other parts of the body. And blood pressure actually fluctuates throughout the day. So it's not a good idea to make a diagnosis of blood pressure after only one measurement. And there are two figures that we look at. The systolic is the bigger figure, and the diastolic is when it measures relaxation of the heart, and that should be about 120/80. So I'm giving you the ideal. Now, why are we concerned about blood pressure? Because the higher the blood pressure, the higher there are risks of heart disease, stroke, heart attacks, and loss of organ function. Okay? And so for the men, you might want to know that it is very, very important to look at ways to manage your blood pressure, as for the women as well, not just men, but it impacts family health. And so those are the things that can happen when there is a lot of stress and a lot of blood pressure challenges. It might even turn out to be low blood pressure, resulting in fainting. But things like depression, loss of libido, extreme fatigue, salt craving, and muscle aches and pains. Now, those are the kinds of complaints we hear regularly, and people think, oh my gosh, I need a pill to fix that. But did you know that what we aren't eating is what is in fact killing us? In other words, malnutrition. Okay, missing nutrients cause disease and even death. And a study was done and showed that low whole grains, low fruits, low omega-3 oils, and very few vegetables in the diet in highly populated countries that they chose, this was a specific study, were the reasons that people fell sick. So I thought I would bring that up front so that you know what we can discuss and talk about as regards the health of the family. Now, as regards asking good questions, I love this quote by Albert Einstein, one of my most favorite scientists. He said, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. Because once I know the proper question, I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, as you formulate your questions and ask your questions, think carefully about the questions, because you might actually know the answer yourself, okay? But Dr. Kabugo is looking forward to answering them, as I too. So my biggest question, and I've thought about it for a long time, is what is wrong? What are we missing, right? I think I asked that about the women when we were talking about mama. What have we missed? Okay, because as diseases escalate, more and more medications are being used to treat chronic diseases than ever before. So what is wrong is my question, and I would love us to answer that. So yes, we're now going into a time of questions and answers, and I'm just going to stop the share, and hopefully we can talk to each other. So Dr. Kabugo, you are welcome. If there are any questions, ladies and gentlemen, just if you want to speak and you are sure that your Wi-Fi is not fluctuating too much, put up your hand and I will unmute you.
You said the root cause of heat.
Yes.
The warming or the heating.
Well, I suppose when the feet feel hot.
Hey, the feet feeling very hot.
Yes.
Oh, at night when a person is sleeping.
Yes.
Well, there are a number of causes that we can look at. But physiologically, we look at the brain as a regulator of heat of the general body. And if we are having uncoordinated hormonal movements or hormonal instructions, sometimes that leads to that. That is one. Then second, because I do not want to go into it as if I am explaining it medically, but it can also be caused by the blood flow. The blood flow, the blood which flows into the what? Into the feet. Then the third, it might also be an electrolyte imbalance. We are having an imbalance in electrolytes. So those three, but normally it is always good to approach your doctor to diagnose what the cause could be. Because if I can plainly state it that this is the cause, when we go out to make sure that we do investigations, the cause might be different. So that is a medical issue which needs to approach your physician or your doctor to make sure that he can help you in that angle.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, please type your questions. And then I can only vouch for people that are polite to us before I allow them to speak, because trying to unmute people is okay. Any other question? Dr. Kabugo, perhaps you could carry on and give us your story about your blood pressure challenges that you came across.
All right, thank you, Dr. Eseza. Well, my story is an interesting one, and if I was to give it, I would.
Yeah. You seem to be breaking up.
At least take like 2 hours. I'm breaking up?
Yes, a little bit, but carry on.
As I was saying, that in 2005, I found out that I was hypertensive. That time, I was working on a project, and it was a nutritional related project. My background is medical, but I had to go for a master's in public health, where I did metamedical practice. I had to go for nutrition and dietetics, and that exposed me to a wide range of the other side of me, the other part of me, which had already changed a lot of my medical background to considering nutrition. But I was diagnosed with hypertension, and my blood pressure was 150, and the lower one was around 115. And for those in the medical field, having that pressure range is really high. I managed my hypertension for 15 years, and well, that was a cholesterol-induced hypertension. I had a lot of cholesterol in my blood, and I also had atherosclerosis. That one was a very big problem. But in 2020, when COVID came in, I was still running another project. It was a project on cancer, and it struck everyone because COVID first hit our donors. We had a challenge of finance, so I got a tension. Was stress induced. Because of the stress I got through to make sure that I could continue with life, running my day-to-day life, it was so hard on me to the extent that my blood pressure had to shoot onto between 180 to 200, that is the upper ranges, and the lower ranges were matching the minimum upper range, that is 120. I had all the signs of getting a stroke, and I had all the signs of getting a heart attack. It was too bad on me to the extent that when I was looking at people, while I was working on patients who had stroke, I started imagining myself being one of them. That is when I hated working in the medical field to the extent that I could not even manage to treat myself going into the situation that I was in. That was too much on me that actually I got traumatized. I got traumatized and finally decided that I think I should stop this practice. I think I should stop this practice. And I told my bosses, please let me go back home to make sure that I can look after myself. Otherwise, I might die on work. You either choose to remain with me and die on work, or I go back and try to make sure that I rectify my nutrition so that I can get a relatively better health and live a bit longer. So I went back. I decided to establish an agro-nutrition and farmers training center with all the intentions of taking all people who were in my situation or all people who were suffering from metabolic syndrome to train them how they can do home gardening so that they can improve on their nutrition as they grow their own crops or their own plants at home. Basically, that's where Neolife found me. Actually, as a doctor, I did not agree to move on to the supplementing part of it because of the many supplements that are on market that had kept on disappointing me whenever I was trying to use them, especially when I was working on certain projects. I used to work on projects that were promoting maternal and child health, and you know, nutrition is one of the biggest parts in that. So because of that, I did not adapt on the use of nutrition supplement, even in Neolife. But I started Neolife because of Supergrow. I wanted my crops to look good, actually to grow very well. And it was a recommendation of a person who did not even go to school, but was a farmer. He told me, you know, doctor, the only thing you need to do is you have to use Supergrow in order to have your crops look good. So when I started using Supergrow, that is when I got a second thought. I asked myself, if a Supergrow or this product that is working on plants can work effectively, I think the company is genuine enough to provide even the right supplement. That's when I started considering reading the literature or the books that I had in my bag when I was being given that bag, when I was being enrolled as a distributor. And considering the approach that Neolife expresses in the books or in all the product catalog and the approach of how they are making the supplements, I was interested or I was impressed. But as a person in the field, I could not try on myself. I went to a hospital, one of the big hospitals, and being that I am a teacher of doctors, I told some doctors to get me specimens. So they got some people who had a lot of metabolic syndrome with different complications, but they had their money. So that is how I started trying out on the products of Neolife. And unfortunately, only 2 of the 12 people that I enrolled as my trials, only 2 died, but the rest are still on when they had a very big problem big problems that involve the major organs like liver, like the kidneys, like the lungs. So, and I'm still having them because basically what I decided to do was to do an organ regeneration. So I'm still trying out to regenerate an organ using using supplements, and I think I am succeeding because organs can regenerate if you provide them with the right nutrients. To cut the long story short, after seeing that the products were working for the patients, then I had to try them myself. But I resolved that according to my science and whatever I studied, I must use these products for not less than 366 circadians. So, you know, as we measure in circadians, we are looking at hormonal changes on a daily basis, because I knew that if I am to work on my condition, I had to make sure that I have I have my hormones stabilized to make sure that they can perform the right duties in the right hours. So I used the products for 1 year. But in 4 months, that is when I got the results. That's when my hypertension had to drop and it went back to 150. That is in 4 months. And it was 150 over 100, which was very good and positive. And in the next 2 months, because I was consistent and I continued using the products, actually, I remember I used the TreaNN because I knew the mechanism of action that adding TreaNN in my diet would bring. I also used omega-3. I used the salmon oil plus. I used the carotenoid to do the repair of my vessels. I also used the multi-mineral because I had an electrolyte imbalance. Actually, when I did my RFTs, I found out I had an electrolyte imbalance. I used the multi-mineral, but to some extent, I had to detoxify to make sure that I get the right balance of the electrolytes. I used lipotropic adjunct because I felt like I shouldn't really leave any more deposition of plaque in my arteries because I had atherosclerosis. Then I used vitamin E and CoQ10. Now, this is a blend of different supplements to make sure that I could provide my body with the right nutrients to do the repair of the cardiovascular system. And currently, I will tell you that my blood pressure is around 135 over 98, and it is now like 1 year and 2 months. But that's better than using amlodipine and losartan that I was using. And currently, I'm not using any antihypertensive. So when you call me on this platform, I am really so excited, and I believe that what I can tell people can help them change their life, can help them change lifestyle, and can help them adapt to better health.
Awesome.
Basically, that's
yeah, thank you so much. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, the key message here that you should take away is Dr. Kabugo used his products consistently and for a long time. A lot of us want to be fixed very, very quickly, and we don't promise that that will happen. However, we promise results, don't we? They definitely are results. So if there are no other comments, I can't see any other comments. Thank you, MRK, for that one about burning feet. And if you listened to the presentation on botanical balance last night, one of the big reasons that people develop burning feet is poor blood sugar control. And so they start developing neuropathies, and neuropathy simply means inflammation of the nerves, okay? And they call it neuropathy because they don't understand the real mechanism. Anything that doctors don't understand, they call it something pathetic. It's an apathy of some sort. So neuropathy is just that, but the inflammation is no doubt caused by poor blood sugar control, and as the nerves get damaged, you can imagine it can be happening in other parts of the body as well. So one of the areas that people forget is the innervation to blood vessels can also develop neuropathies. Yes, doctor?
Well, Dr. Eseza, now you see, when we have ATP poorly saturated in nerves.
Okay, ATP is that energy current.
The hypothalamus, and then it will lead, because the blood, when you are having high blood sugar content, that is in the blood, that is the glucose content in the blood, we have what we call poor venous return and poor blood saturation. That increases the blood density. The blood is heavy to return, and the cells themselves will now pump out ATP. The ATP will go extracellular outside the cell, and then it will burn the fibrous tissue, and then fibrous tissue is full of fat. When that fat starts to melt, it will create heat. That's where I never wanted to go, because now that is deep into it. That is where we get, now when you get that heat being in the fibrous tissue, then you are going to have melting fat. The best protein, we can say the best protein, the major best protein, which is the collagen, retains the heat, and we are having less water movement. When we are having less water movement, we are having less oxygen being saturated, so the heat will not be distributed along the body. And because these are the peripheral parts of the body, the farthest part of the body, by the time that feet is being cooled down, or should be cooled down, well, it has to take a long period of time. And basically, when you're sleeping, you are lying straight. Saturation of blood is not by gravity. It is not moving, it is not saturated by gravity. And arteries move by gravity. And the more oxygen you have with the hydrogen, that is when we are going to get we are going to get hydrated down to make sure that we cool the feet. So when you are sleeping, saturation of blood is limited. And if it is limited, increase the ATP production. Once it is not used, it is going to smelt the best protein and the fat. That is the cholesterol that is deposited there, and the high sugar content will lead to that. That's why I had to refer to go to a physician, because there are a number of investigations that need to be done if we are to do that in physiology.
Okay, awesome. And you know, once you have chosen, as you have, to focus on a very common complaint, high blood pressure. I just singled that out, but along with high blood pressure tends to be diabetes. There tends to be overweight and obesity. There tends to be other complications, you know, they'll discover high cholesterol. All those things, it is so tempting to medicate. But now, let us focus on nutrition. I think that is our passion, our reason for being here. Nutrition. How important is it? What advice do you give your clients?
Now, after all that I went through, I said, I think now I have more relevance in practice than I was before. Because if I didn't manage to make sure that I treat myself, and I used these products and they helped me a lot, I decided that there are so many people who are having the same challenge. That's when I resolved to establish Kampala Nutrition Clinic. And basically, though I have the knowledge about medicine, but we look at all the medicines that we are having that work on the conditions of diabetes, hypertension, they all have hormonal influences. And once we rectify our diet, our body organs have the ability to make sure that they stabilize the production and utilization of hormones. The basic principle that I got from Neolife was to get a balanced diet. You will look at a number of companies that are producing supplements. They do not provide balanced diet. They only provide sections, all simple fractions of a balanced diet. So we do not have a wholesome approach to re-establishment of a body system. Now, the advice I normally give to my clients is you are looking at a symptom, and the drugs that you are going to be given, they are going to manage the symptom. What about the cause? The cause is systemic failure. And systemic failure is only caused by lack of the nutrients that your body needs. Actually, using nutrition supplement is like supplementing for cellular health, because it is the cells that make the system. Once the cells receive the right nutrients, they will put the system back into the way it is supposed to work. Regulation of blood sugar, reduction of bad fat, that is bad cholesterol, formation of good fat so that they can counteract the bad fat, removal of the bad fat from the body. All this is done once you give your body the right nutrients. So my advice is, if you are having a problem which is metabolic or which is systemic, talk about liver, chronic liver disease, talk about lung disease, interstitial lung disease, talk about autoimmune diseases, for example, multiple sclerosis or systemic sclerosis. All that can be rectified once you provide the body with the right nutrients. So my advice is, if I am giving you these supplements, they are a treatment, a causative treatment of a systemic failure. What caused the system to fail is what we are approaching by ensuring that we treat or we nourish the cells to rectify the system. Everyone who is on call and you are having this challenge, it is not about the medication that you are given. All medication that you are given is targeting slowing down the process so that you do not die quickly, so that you do not have a systemic failure quickly. We slow down the process. And that's why you are always told, please mind your lifestyle. Go and exercise. Rest enough for your hormones to balance. Make sure you have a good diet so that your cells will be able to do their work in the right way. That is the only solution to metabolic syndrome, and that is the only solution to any autoimmune disease.
And it's amazing, isn't it, that the general treatment is the same for whatever when it comes to nutrition. There are no, everybody needs to be nourished. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, here's a question. Lydia wants to know, is it okay, we were talking about feet, is it okay to raise feet with a pillow at night? What are the advantages and disadvantages of that?
All right, that's another very good question. The reason why many doctors will recommend raise your feet is because we want to utilize the availability of gravitation force. Because the veins do not return the blood as they are supposed to be, so they use gravity as an assistant to make sure that the blood will flow back. So raising feet itself will help in the return of the blood, but will not remove the cause. The cause is, make sure that you work on the circulation system by providing the body with the right nutrients. To some extent, when you ask me what the side effect could be, just as we always say it, every action has an opposite but equal reaction. If you want the blood to flow back quickly, but you are now creating a hill that the blood which has to move uphill will have a problem. And yet you are not using your feet. By the way, much of our blood pressure is controlled but by the peripheral tissues. Once we move our fingers, once we move our feet, we are creating blood return or a return of blood. Remember, when you are asleep and you have raised your legs, you are not in motion. You are not doing any activity that is going to make your cells or system active. To some extent, then you will have flow goes into the feet. So every action has an opposite and equal reaction. The blood will move down or move back, but now it will create hardship for the blood to flow uphill.
Okay. All right, so that answers that one, using gravity, but at the same time, nourishing yourself adequately so that your blood vessels, your muscles, and also exercising during the day can function better. Because I have in the past pointed out that rather than looking at symptoms only, we should also enhance the way our tissues work. And if as we age, we lose muscle, it is important to make sure that muscles are nourished and the blood vessels are kept patent. So we have all those supplements to help to build collagen, to make sure that the blood doesn't become sluggish and thick, you know? And that is why we say use your products, isn't it? Because a lot of people say, must I be taking all those things? The simple answer is that yes, if you want to be healthy, everything that our family makes has a reason, has a very good reason for being there. And so for the guests, I want to just show you what our products are all about. If I can get the slideshow back, okay. Okay, so, you know, all of us might work our young lives as hard as possible so that we can become wealthy. But in so doing, unfortunately, during those years, we might be a little careless with what we choose for our lifestyles. So can you make it a point to choose wisely in all ways? And that is what we are taught in Your Life, and that's what Dr. Kabugo has really elaborated on, the importance of choosing. And why is that? We know that, sorry, let's just go back. Our immune systems are what keep us alive, right? And nutrition is a critical determinant of how the immune system works. You'd better believe that. And malnutrition is the most common cause of immunodeficiency. And a lot of people blame a lot of things, yet it is their system that is failing to keep up. And as regards diet, you are what you eat. And the reality is that 75% of all chronic diseases will be prevented if we choose correctly. And so we want to introduce you to our scientific advisory board. It was started by Dr. Arthur First in the mid-70s. He came to Neolife when Neolife was already in existence. Neolife started in 1958. This is for the benefit of the visitors on the call. And so our flagship product is what Dr. Kabugo mentioned, TreeNN. It is whole grain concentrates, and it works at a cellular level. It feeds us at a cellular level. And you are wondering where ATP comes from. Inside our cells are these organs or organelles called mitochondria, and they create the ATP. That is what energy is made of in our cells. And so you know, we are supposed to ideally do a lot of physical activity and eat lots of whole grain, but unfortunately, coming across whole grain is almost impossible these days. Why? Because of food processing that happened. So the typical lifestyle pyramid, more realistically now, is that people do very little physical activity and so develop all sorts of health issues. And then we eat too much of the wrong fats and too much sugar and processed grain. We don't eat whole grain anymore. We are eating it as processed, and that's actually more potent than sugar sometimes. Anyway, too much fats and sugars, and perhaps processed protein as well, processed in the sense that it has to be preserved with chemicals, or it is reared in a funny kind of way, and not enough fruits and vegetables. So the end result is that our energy levels dwindle over time, and unfortunately, we end up being supported by a whole host of either medications, or we live below our full potential for energy and vitality. That is not ideal. So we want to introduce to you again what we are talking about, and that is cellular nutrition. The solution for that, to enhance energy and to improve nutrient utilization efficiency, is to make sure that the cell membrane functions well and allows nutrients in, and it has to be built properly. This is what has been processed out of food. The grain oils have been processed out. Now, we also have core nutrition, because core nutrition includes the threonine we are talking about, but importantly, also the amino acids. This is one of the only companies that will provide you all the 22 amino acids, plus those nutrients that Dr. Kabugo has talked about that helped to bring down blood pressure, help to manage the metabolic syndrome, but you have to be ready to use them consistently and not just as a flash in the pan. You don't do it for a short season and stop. Why? Because it's food. You are feeding yourself at a cellular level. And then Dr. Arthur First was a real pioneer, a top toxicologist and pharmacologist. So his pioneering work in toxicology and pharmacology caused him, when he first came to Neolife, to create this product called BetaGuard. Can I encourage you from time to time to use BetaGuard? It is an amazing product at ensuring that you detoxify at a cellular level, remove those toxins that come to plague our cells and cause a lot of disease. Now, Neolife also has amazing home care and skincare products to ensure that everything is earth-friendly and non-toxic and age-defying in the process. So just a few products will transform your home. For example, this is one of my all-time favorites, the washing powder, but I love all the products and I use all of them. And so by not destroying your skin microbiome, for example, you are already enhancing your health and you will not develop as much disease. And that's what we are all about. Our family called Neolife is on a mission to make the world a healthier and happier place. And so you need to turn to the person who has invited you. But if there are other questions, perhaps we have 5 or so minutes or less. Here is a question. What is the cure for sciatica, Dr. Kabugo? And what causes autoimmune conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis? For that question, if you listened to all the presentations that happen every time, and what we have talked about today. It is all about challenges with nutrient supply to the body. So Dr. Kabugo, would you like to talk about sciatica and autoimmunity?
Well, sciatica is a nerve. And nerves, once they are damaged, so that you are having a nerve damage, or you are having an inflammation. In most cases, it is always referred to as a vitamin B12 deficiency. But according to me, I believe it is a whole component, all complete B, because there's a lot involved. We don't want to single out one single vitamin, but sciatica is a nerve, so which means you're having a problem with that nerve, especially the nerve which connects the lower part of the body coming back onto the spine, so that it can be communicating into the brain through the central nervous system. So now the cause could be, maybe it's a number of causes, but we can say if it is about nutrition, it's about a deficiency of vitamin B. But remember, nerves are cells. Now these are cells, and they have a connecting, or they connect to each other so that they can transfer it, they can move impulses or information. In case part of that nerve is being damaged or being squeezed to some extent, so you'll be having that pain. But the most important thing that you need to know, if you're working on nerves, nerves move along with blood vessels. So which means in most cases, there is a blockage, or there might be a clot around somewhere which can bring that. All else, we need to identify what is the underlying cause. Actually, when you come to me, I'll first of all ask you about your lifestyle and what happened to you 2 to 3 days before, so that I can know if you did any damage accidentally, or look at other factors to see if it is a nutritional deficiency. But all in general, because our environment is not providing to us the right nutrients that are going to maintain even our nervous system, we will always find problems with peripheral nerves, or nerves that supply senses onto the peripheral parts of the body.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to autoimmune,
sorry.
Pardon?
No, I was
when
just
it
going
comes to autoimmune,
yeah, okay. I just want to add that a big factor is the inflammatory oils, such as cooking oil, margarine, all those. If those are a lot in the diet and there's not enough of the right type of the oil that nerves are built out of, such as omega-3 oils and the lipids and sterols that are found in threonine, then the body will use the wrong fat, embed it into those nerve tissue, and that can lead to a lot of inflammation. So just remember that one way to manage that, to help with sciatica, is to use much bigger amounts of omega-3 so that it evicts, it kicks out those inflammatory oils that have been embedded in the nerve tissue, so that the nerve tissue is rebuilt properly. That takes time, but it does work. And yes, the vitamin B complex as well, as long as it is food sourced, just like ours is, and it is complete. Okay, so you were going to talk about autoimmunity, and I think after that we shall be closing.
Yeah, and also just to add on that, that's why it's always good, not in order to rule out the cause, we go for a lipid profile so that we can assess the right if we are having the right balance of the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. So yes, a person who is having any problem with sciatica You have to go out there and you tell your doctor, or your doctor will advise to do a lipid profile to make sure that they can assess the right amount of cholesterol you are having, either the good or bad. Now, anything which is autoimmune disease goes back to the DNA. Now, it is an improper utilization of proteins as we build the different cells. Now, when you go to rheumatoid arthritis, now that one goes back into the bone marrow. It goes back into the bone marrow. So we make sure that we balance our proteins, especially if we are to fight autoimmune. We need proteins that are plant-based. Plant-based proteins will be very good to make sure that we can counteract that. But at the same time, there are a lot of investigations that still need to be done so that we can rule out certain factors. Basically, that's what I can say, Dr. Esses.
Okay. All right. So, as I said, we can answer some questions. I didn't say we can answer all questions, but one answer to the question for sure is that nutrition is important. It is also important to ensure that your lifestyle includes elimination of as much of those toxic chemicals as possible. And that is why over the many months that I've been doing these sessions, I emphasize our cleaning products. And people have wondered, why is that the case? Well, it's very much like trying to fix a situation before you remove the cause. You're actually going to waste a lot of time, a lot of money, you will get frustrated. By removing a lot of those toxins, you help your body to focus its immune system on the job at hand. And if the job, for example, is an infection or autoimmunity or whatever is disturbing the body, by taking away all those distractions, I call them distractions, all the chemicals that are in various detergents out there, then your body will become more focused on healing and on real nourishment and rebuilding the immune system so that it is called upon quickly. If there is inflammation, it will do the right response, and then it will settle down rather than continuing to simmer on for a long time, because that's essentially what an autoimmune disease is, yeah? Inflammation that has gone wrong. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope this has been useful. I see that we have run out of time, and I also would like to thank you very much for being here. As soon as we can get a recording out, we will. I'll just have to look at it first and have it cleaned up a little bit. Let me, yes, thank you.